coming up on the Middle Class VO podcast.
One of the things that certainly has drawn me and ultimately made me proud to be a part of the voiceover community is that it's so collaborative. There's this sense of we're all in it together. And so the Facebook communities, the conferences, organizations like WOVO, there are so many people that are so giving and willing to help each other out. And I don't know many other industries where that sort of thing would happen.
If you need e-learning, we're just an email away. Corporate narration, tell us what to say. Explainer video, imaging radio, slinging local cars, reading IVR. No, we ain't no stars. This is the Middle Class VO podcast. The Middle Class VO podcast. The Middle Class VO podcast.
Yeah, welcome to the Middle Class VO podcast. Kevin Kilpatrick in Nashville, Bobby Maxwell in Cincinnati, and we are so excited to have very special guests Joe Davis and Karin Barth from VoiceActorWebsites.com. Joe is the founder and CEO, whereas Karin is the director of operations, and we all know what that means, that she probably does all the work. Is that how? No, I'm joking. Joe and Karin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, both in Orlando, and we are all once again home sheltering or isolating or whatever you call it, because we're on another week of coronavirus scare, and we're gonna make this happen. Speak
for yourselves. I live in beautiful woods where I can go out walking anytime I want.
Oh,
bragging much? Well, we're glad to have you guys on, and today we're going to talk about something that is, I don't know if it's an uncomfortable subject right now, but we're talking about marketing, and voiceover websites are a way to passively market, I would say, without offending anybody. And Bobby, you go back with Karin and Joe both, don't you?
Well, I have to tell you, I actually met them at Voxy Summit 3 years ago. And you both critiqued my existing website at that time. And I was impressed. I really was. I walked away from it, had heard great things about both of you. And I made the choice of going with someone who did someone else's site. And a year later, I went back to you because that other person didn't do what I want. So if I had just stuck to my guns the first time and they just did my new site, and I could not be more pleased with it.
Well, let's start, Joe, with you, Joe. Let's talk about your history with Voice Actor Websites. You're the founder. Did you do websites prior to Voice Actor Websites, or did you dive right in and say, here's a specific need to a specific industry? How did that come about?
So my father was a professor at the University of Buffalo, and I grew up on the campus having access to computers and the early internet before most people did. And so I actually, because I was interested and it was a fun experiment, I started building websites before the internet had graphics. Wow. And before people had 14.4 modems in their houses. And it was a hobby, an interest, a passion, and then ended up going to school for other things. Actually went to the University of Buffalo, and what all that time I was doing websites on the side as a way of generating some income, and then eventually started doing it as a business, and realized that there's a lot of people that make websites, but specializing in an industry where you understand the needs of that industry could be very valuable for both sides. And so actually, thanks to Dan Leonard, the home studio master, co-host of VOBS, he was a good friend of mine, and I helped him with some of his marketing. And he said, I really think that voiceover could be that industry for you, that niche where you know the niche and you know what you do. And so I spent about a year learning about voiceover, did some voiceovers and just understanding the needs of talent seekers, of talent, and then launched Voice Actor Websites and went on Dan's show. And I wasn't really sure what to expect, but basically the day after the show aired, voice actors started calling. and it just snowballed from there. And eventually Karin came aboard, and now we have a team of 27 people. And
Wow.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
It's been a pretty amazing ride. And many of us either are also voice actors or just work exclusively in that industry. And so we know people that hire talent. In fact, today we just helped cast a big project for several talent. And so people come to us because we know so many voice actors. And so we work with agents, we work with end clients. And so we do more than just websites, I guess is what I'm saying.
Did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Karin, do you have a background in voiceover?
I do not. I actually have a background in injection molding. I I ran factories overseas, and I did project management, and product management overseas. So basically, my experience has not been on the techie side of things. Joe taught me everything, and I went to conferences with him for about a year before I started really working, because I felt like if I don't know what's going on in the business, I can't really help people. So it was a really great learning experience. I got to meet a lot of people, and I just made some wonderful friends. It's been really a blessing.
It's a great community.
Joe, whenever you have somebody, or Karin, whoever wants to answer this, when you have a voice actor approach you to consult with them, what are some of the questions that you'll ask the voice talent?
The goals of the talent are super important, because there are basically two ways that talent can use a site for voiceover. The first is an extension of a business card, meaning they've had some sort of prior interaction with someone that wants to hire them, and they're sending them the site to give them that ability to hear them and ideally hire them. And the second is more of a passive form of marketing, where you've done SEO, your website ranks for search terms that talent seekers are looking for, and therefore you're getting people through the door who you haven't actively reached out to. And understanding which is the right fit for the talent is important. So that's probably the first question that we usually ask is, how do you plan to use this? And sometimes people don't even know and don't know that distinction. So it's more of, what are your goals from this? Are you just starting out and you need a place to house your demos? Or is this going to be a primary driver of your voiceover business?
Yeah, I like to find out what their target market is, who their bread and butter clients are if they are already established, to know their personality and if they want that to shine through and be shown on the site. Sometimes there's, their personality is very different than the types of roles they're cast for. So that doesn't come into play. But it's good to know, get a little background, and see where they're at in their career, what they want to achieve with their site, and if they want it to reflect them as a person or just their voice or the combination of the two.
Okay. What has surprised you most about talent's existing sites when they come to you and you check it out? Come on.
Uh-oh, yeah. Let's hear the down and dirty.
No names.
Bobby.
So I'd say that the first thing that I always look for, and I'm surprised how often I don't see it, are demos on the homepage.
Ooh.
And it's downloadable.
Yes. And so, if you are either sending people or want people to come to your website and hear you and hire you, then give them the easiest path to do that. And when we talk to casting directors and producers, one of the first complaints that they have is, I went to a site, couldn't find the demos, I left. And
wow.
The attention span, especially among millennials, but among all talent seekers, I think is pretty low. And the numbers that we hear, and also in Google Analytics tracking, we see within about 7 seconds, people decide whether they're going to stay on a site or not, which is to me a shockingly low number, but it just seems to be the reality.
Yeah, the other thing is their name on their website not in the form of a logo, because Google can't see images and all it can go off of is text. So if they don't have their name actually on their website, they're not going to be found if somebody types in their name. And then is their contact information front and center. A lot of people, when I go to their sites, I can't find how to contact them. And I think that that's very important to have right up front and center.
It is. And Karin mentioned having the demos downloadable. If someone does have downloadable demos on their website, a surprising number don't put their name in the MP3. They'll call it commercial demo.mp3 or narration demo.mp3,
Oh, wow.
which means that somebody who downloads it a week later or a day later or even that night doesn't know where the heck it came from, who it was. And so always putting your name in the MP3 file, ideally both as the file name. So, Joe Davis commercial demo.mp3 and also in the metadata, which is information that's embedded into the audio file. And when you pop it up in a media player, it'll actually have that information embedded in there. And you can put your website and phone number in the metadata. So make sure that those demos, if they're downloadable, have the ability for someone to know where they came from. And then, there's all kinds of things that we look for on the SEO side, which we wouldn't necessarily expect people to know about, but maybe we'll get into that a little bit more later in the conversation. But there's a ton there. And just another thing I would say is making sure that the website works on whatever device. So another thing that we see, especially with sites that were made a few years ago, is that they're not necessarily mobile compliant or mobile responsive. And so you have to pinch and zoom or things don't work on a cell phone or on a tablet. And in today's world, more than half of web traffic is mobile. So it's important there. And then also search engines like Google, they are now a mobile first index, meaning that as of last year, Google now ranks websites according to the mobile version of a site, not the desktop version.
Interesting. Whoa. So I was just wondering, like, for pictures or no pictures on a site, because I do a very young voice for kids promo work, and I'm actually 85 years old. But I'm not 15, that's for sure. And so I chose not to have a picture on at least my landing page. What do you recommend, or is it really the individual person?
I actually think that it's more beneficial it's nice to have that human component on the site, but if it was me and if it was my site, I would put it in their contact form or down in the bio section, because people do bias and think that you sound a certain way by the way you look. So unless you don't have a lot of give to your voice and you sound exactly like you look, or you look exactly like the demographic voice that you're trying to cater to, then I don't think it's beneficial to put it front and center. Now, some people's face is their brand, so it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, I think putting it, like I said, in the contact section or in a bio or internal about page would be great.
I agree with Karin. I think it pre-biases the listener. So if your face is your brand, or you are really niche, and let's say you're Weird Al Yankovic and you have this zany sound and a zany look, then it's fine. But otherwise, it limits your flexibility, because if you look 20 and you sound 40, or you sound the opposite, then it's going to limit you. Or if you do really serious corporate narration but wear baseball caps, people are not going to take you seriously. So to me, the beauty of voiceover is you can be anyone that the person listening to you wants you to be.
That's a good point.
I like that.
And once you show them a picture, you're telling them who you are. So in general, if you're going to put a picture, I completely agree with Karin. Putting it down in the contact form or an about section where people are digging to find more information about you, that's okay. But don't have it be the first thing that someone sees.
A penny for your thoughts.
I love seeing the pictures of Bobby when she's acting zany and wacky, because that's, nothing says zany and wacky like Bobby Maxwell to me. But we're talking about, I was going to ask you about search engine optimization, SEO. You were going to get into that a little bit. Tell us, as voice actors, we want to know what is going to benefit us the most. How does all that work, Joe? Talk to me like I'm a 4-year-old.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Well, it's a very good question. Good question, Kevin. So there's a bit of counterintuitiveness to SEO, I think, for voice talent, because as a voice actor, you want someone to hear your voice and see your brand. And SEO is very much about content, about text-based content. And the more, the better. So if you think of Google as half a popularity contest and half a relevancy engine, I think that's a good analogy.
Wow.
And I'll break those two down. The relevancy engine is Google's trying to find the most relevant result to a searcher's intent. Meaning, let's say someone is looking for healthcare commercial voiceover talent. And so that's the search term that they use, healthcare commercials, voiceover. And you have a website about voiceover. Is it related? Yeah. But could it be more relevant? Absolutely. So then let's say you have this site about voiceover and you break down your genre pages into each genre that you do, each overarching category. So one for commercial, one for narration, one for e-learning, one for IVR, one for audiobooks. So Google looks at that and says, all right, so the website's about voiceover and it's about commercial. So is it related? Yeah. But could it be even more relevant? Yes. So now let's say you do a tertiary level where each one of those genres is broken down further. So under commercial, you have automotive commercials and toy commercials and healthcare commercials. So Google looks at that and says, all right, so the site is about voiceover, it's about commercial, and it's about healthcare commercials. Wow, it becomes one of the most relevant results on the internet. And so getting that granular can be really helpful. It's difficult for new talent because they just don't have the body of work to support that. But that's the sort of thing that Google's looking for. And the sweet spot in terms of text-based content is something like 800 words a page, which 99.9% of website visitors are not going to read that text, but it's not for them. It's for the search engines. It has to make sense if someone's going to actually read it, but it's for showing the search engines that you really know what you're talking about with this content. And so that's the relevancy engine portion. And then on the popularity contest side, Google was trying to understand how, if something was popular, and it was trying to figure out the best way to do that. And what it came up with, and all search engines use this to some extent, was backlinks. So other websites that link to you count as a vote in favor of your site. Now, a number of years ago, they changed that to relevant contextual backlinks. And so what that means is if you get a website backlink from your barber, that's not going to help you because it's not relevant and contextual. It doesn't have anything to do with what you do. But if you get links from other websites that have something to do with what you do, if they're about voiceover, about commercials, about production, from agents, all that sort of thing, each one of those counts as a vote in favor of your site.
So even like the pay-to-plays would do that?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I'll answer that in a sec. It's a very good question. So there's something called domain authority and page authority. And essentially, that's a logarithmic scale from 1 to 100, which measures the relative power of a particular page on a site or the entire domain, which is the aggregate of all the pages. And so the higher the authority, the more authority it can pass to you. And so it's much better to get a backlink from CNN than it is from, or whatever news station, than from a website that's a much lower domain authority. Now, the caveat is exactly what you just mentioned. So you have the pay-to-plays, which in general are not incentivized to have individual voice talent websites outrank them because that is not good for their business.
Yeah.
So regardless of what you think of pay-to-plays, there's something you can add to a link, and it's called a no-follow tag. And so the no-follow attribute tells search engines, even though we're linking to this other site, don't pass any authority. Don't have this count as a vote in favor of that site. And so if you're in Chrome, you can just right-click on a link and do inspect, and you can see whether it's a no-follow tag. But virtually all of the pay-to-plays have no-follow tags on their links, so they don't pass any authority to the individual talent.
Oh, curses.
Tell us more.
Okay, so there's on-page, site, SEO, and off-page. So the off-page, the thing that's most important off-page that you can do is get the relevant contextual backlinks. On-page is anything you could do to optimize your site, such as what Joe mentioned, which is adding the content in the form of text, breaking up those pages so that you have individual pages dedicated to very specific subjects or genres, and having H tags set up, alt tags. Alt tags basically tell the bots they can't see images. So if you attribute an alt tag to an image, then it understands what's there, and that's helpful. So if it's a picture of your logo and it just said, it didn't have an alt tag, or if it just said logo, that's not very descriptive. But if it said Bobby Maxwell voiceovers, then that's much more descriptive. And that's very helpful. And then the H tags are heading tags that are very important, because they're basically, it's telling the search engines what your page is about, and you're optimizing for those terms. So it's very important to distinguish what those are on your page.
Wow. All this stuff makes my head hurt. So whenever I was talking to Bobby about this the other day, we like to play, we like to perform, we like to get in front of the mic, and then we like everything else to kind of take care of itself. Somebody else help us with that. What can somebody, expect budget-wise to pay? Let's say you talk with them, you assess their needs, and they want to get some results. They want to get some, drive-by traffic onto their website. What kind of budget can somebody expect to pay, quarterly, monthly, whatever it is, to get a little bit of traffic, getting some bites on their website?
You're talking about SEO-wise?
Yeah, I'm serious. To me, you've got to break it down for me again. And I know what SEO is, and I know all, the search terms and all that. You got to do all that. So yes, in terms of SEO, or if I just said, hey, Joe, hey, Karin, what's it going to take for my monthly or quarterly budget or whatever it is to get some traffic into my website and for potential clients to reach out to me for auditions?
It depends on how difficult the search term is that you're going after, or the set of search terms. And some people know what they want to go after, some people don't. The less competitive the search term, the easier it is, but usually the less lucrative it is. Not always. Sometimes you can find these golden nuggets that no one else has thought of and is not optimizing for. I would say most people who are doing SEO on a regular basis are spending anywhere from $500 to $2,000 or $3,000 a month. And
specific to our industry?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you are dealing with something like a law firm, they're spending many thousands of dollars. And that's why I think most voice talent, if they do SEO, they don't see a result, because they end up, doing something like going to their web host and signing up for an SEO package, which is $50 a month or $100 a month, which doesn't move the needle at all. It's not a human being doing anything. It's just their web host says, "Oh, we'll make your server faster," or whatever their version of SEO optimization is. But real SEO optimization requires a human being touching it virtually every day, and so there's a fair amount of continual work involved. And then if once you stop, sometimes you stay at the top for a while. Sometimes, it takes time, and then you drop off, and sometimes you drop off right away because there's always other people doing other things. If you search for competitive search terms like female voiceover talent, more than half the first page of Google are actually clients of ours. And so we won't, for a specific genre or gender or modifier, we won't take more clients in that section than their space, because it's just, to me, it's not ethical. And so we work with people on and off all the time. Some people will, do SEO with us for 6 months and then stop for a few months and then start again. Some people just continue all the time. Some people do a month or two and then stop. So there's no set rates for SEO. I would say expect to pay about $100 an hour. And if someone quotes less than that, they probably are not doing effective SEO.
Yeah, and the price also depends on the talent's involvement. Sometimes we do all the work, and because they just want it done. Some people will write their own content, have us tweak it and optimize it. It could be a combination of things. So there's usually a budget that somebody has in mind, and we take that budget, we develop a strategy, and we try to come up with the best solution to make that money stretch, depending on how much time they have to put in and what they want us to do. It's really a collaborative process most of the time.
Do you guys ever turn anybody down?
Yeah.
We actually turn people down for websites sometimes. So if someone comes to us and they're very much not ready for a website, we'll tell them.
Yeah.
We get about 1,500 unique visitors a day on voice actor websites. And so we get a lot of people who are outside of the voiceover community that we all know. And there's a lot of people who have this idea that, you can stay at home and make money in your PJs and all you have to do is go out and buy a USB mic. And so there's a lot of education to what we do as well. And on a fairly regular basis, we'll let people know, what are you going to put on your website? Because you don't have a demo. And they're like, well, I haven't thought about that. Or, I'll just record something on my phone. And we're like, okay. So what you need to do is learn about the industry.
Wow.
And, maybe in a year or two, you'll be ready and you can come back to us. But here are some resources. And so there's as I said, a big educational component. And we certainly turn people away for websites. And for SEO, I probably convince more people not to do SEO than to do SEO, because I think there's a good reason to do it. And then there are people that think that should be their business model, is that people will just find them online. And it works for some folks. We have a client, Debbie Grattan, and we've worked with her for a long time, and her SEO is fantastic and she gets a lot of business from it. We also work with Jay Michael, and he gets business from his SEO. Kim Handyside, same thing. But there are definitely talent that either don't have the financial part of their budget to spend on SEO, or it's just not going to be a primary driver for them. Certain genres are not driven right now by Google searches. Others get a lot of search.
Right. Like you wouldn't book work for promo through your site, typically speaking. So that's not something, if somebody said, well, I want to up my game in SEO for promo, we would probably advise against it.
What about hosting and domain names? I wanted to share a funny story, not so much funny for her. A friend of mine who did voiceover as a side hustle, still does, used her name as her domain. And she had a friend who did the hosting and kind of just maintained the site. Well, both of them forgot about re-upping or renewing whatever. And my friend went to log on, and her website, which, Jill Jones or whatever, was now a porn site.
Mm-hmm.
Hi-yo.
And just because they both forgot, they missed a date, basically. Are there companies or searches that people are looking for something to slip through the cracks like that?
So there is a huge, huge industry in aftermarket domains.
Wow.
And the reasons for that are largely tied to SEO. So the older a website is, the older the domain name is and the content that resided on there, in general, the better it performs. It'll also have backlinks already. And so I sometimes pay many thousands of dollars for old domains.
Really?
I own about 1,000 domains.
Wow.
And which,
it's an investment.
It is an investment, absolutely. And I either sell them or lease them or use them for our own internal purposes. And many of them are outside of VoiceOver. There are certainly several hundred within VoiceOver, but many of them are outside of VoiceOver. And people will pay tremendous amounts. So, I've paid up to $10,000 for a domain. And there are certain things that make a domain more valuable. So as I said, age, how many backlinks it has, but also things like what keywords appear in it, how short it is. There are no more 4-letter domains. There haven't been for many years. And so, ztvy.com would probably sell for a minimum of $500 to $1,000. And that's simply because there are no more left. It's not because it spells anything. There are no more 3-character domains. So, 1nj.com .com, that would sell for probably even more than the 4-character or the 4-letter domain. And then 2-character domains, even if there were any available, the ICANN, which is the International Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, it's the parent body that controls all domain names. That registrars like GoDaddy or Namecheap will go to and apply to become a registrar. They don't allow 2-character registrations anymore, and they haven't for like 15 or 20 years. And so I actually own a couple 2-character ones, and they're worth many tens of thousands of dollars because you can't get them anymore. So even if someone dropped a domain and let it go, you couldn't register it. So yes, absolutely, there is a big market. I was reading, I don't know, a few months ago that it's a multi-billion-dollar market. I don't know how much is spent on aftermarket domains, but it's certainly big.
We're going to start wrapping this up, but Joe and Karin, any final words for voice actors? We have a lot of voice actors that are just starting, and then we have a lot that are really well established. What are just a few nuggets of advice that you would give to voice actors with regards to their online presence?
I would say it's important for your brand and what you're putting forward to reflect the end client that you're looking to work with, and that it should show a little fun, a little bit of your personality, because I think, having a little humanistic touch in there is important. And of course, the technical things like having your demos downloadable, having your name front and center, your contact information front and center. And, it's a fun industry to be in. It's a great community, and there's so much stuff to learn.
I agree with everything Karin said. And I think one of the things that certainly has drawn me and ultimately made me proud to be a part of the voiceover community is that it's so collaborative. So as opposed to many other industries, including on camera, where everybody is constantly competing with each other and unwilling to help each other out, even though in the voiceover world, we do to some extent compete with each other, there's this sense of we're all in it together.
Yeah.
And so the Facebook communities, the conferences, organizations like Wovo, there are so many people that are so giving and willing to help each other out. And, they're working on a project or they can't do a project and someone asks them and they refer a friend or someone that they know, or they're working on a project and they need another voice and they'll say, hey, anybody available to do this who matches these characteristics? I don't know many other industries where that sort of thing would happen. And so I think that the same thing with an online presence, when you look at something for too long, and this is true of anybody, I think it's hard to be objective about it. And so bringing in people that care about you and want to help to help with your decision making can be very helpful. Now, ultimately, you have to be happy with the end result. And as Karin said, it should always keep the end client in mind, because if you view yourself as one way but you're going towards a certain type of work that doesn't necessarily match up with that, well, then there's going to be a conflict there. So I think before you decide on a brand, let's say someone is brand new, picking a brand might not be the first thing that you want to do. You might want to just look professional, clean and professional. Mm-hmm. And then once you establish yourself as a talent and figure out who you are as a voice actor and what type of jobs you book, then work on branding. Some people may know from the beginning, and that's great, but I wouldn't stress too much initially about branding. I would worry more about coming across as professional, doing what you do well, and being available to a wide variety of work until you figure out who you are. That's for new talent. And for established talent, I think having audio demos that are playable and downloadable, video if and when you have it, because it's more engaging than audio. People watch video for longer, bio, client logos, client testimonials, voice descriptors, delivery methods, equipment, easy to contact information, contact form. All those things are things that talent seekers do look at. And so I would recommend keeping all those things in mind when you're building a site.
Excellent.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what you were saying about talent just starting out, a lot of people, 2 years down the line, their business is in a very different place. So I think spending a lot of money up front trying to worry about how to brand yourself is not right for everybody, because things just change so much, as you get more work and you have more experience. And I just feel super blessed to work in this industry. I've made some amazing friends that I consider family. So it's just been a real blessing, and it's an awesome community.
That's great. Bobby, anything else?
No, what a wealth of information.
No kidding.
That's awesome.
Karin Barth, Director of Operations and Project Manager, and Joe Davis, Founder and CEO of VoiceActorWebsites.com. Thank you so much for being on the Middle Class VO podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
And if anybody wants to reach out to them, just check them out, VoiceActorWebsites.com. You can read about them under their contact or their About Us and all kinds of examples. And you'll see some great work that they have at VoiceActorWebsites.com. Guys, let's do this again.
We'd love to.
Or let's get out of this situation we're in so we can go to a conference and celebrate.
Right?
Exactly. Oh, thanks so much, guys. And you guys take care.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
The Middle Class VO Podcast is a K2 Media Productions production.
All views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests. The McVob jingle was written and produced by Kevin.
Co-produced and performed by Chloe Dolandis.
Additional engineering by Zach Zimmett.
Bobby's hair and makeup by Rebecca Adlita.
Kevin's wardrobe by Slippery Pete's Fashion Emporium.
All previous episodes are available for download on Podbean.
For the Middle Class VO Podcast, I'm Tracy Thibodeau.
I'm Lisa Lou Perry.
Thanks for listening.
And don't miss the next episode of
The Middle Class VO Podcast. The Middle Class VO Podcast.